All right. Welcome to the YouTube special extra that you get watching our podcast on YouTube. We have Jade Peterson and Ethan Whitman here with us from the Kentucky Artisan Distillery. And I'm excited because, you guys have so many kind of different things going on, and I think, when was the Kentucky Artisan Distillery? When did it start? What year was that?
It was 2012.
2012.
Okay, so you're on 10 years.
10 years. It took about a year and a half to 2 years to get spooled up to where all the equipment and everything was brought in and the distillery was built. It was completely from scratch and built from actually all used equipment that was gathered at the time.
Okay, and then so when it comes to, just so you know, when I first started getting into bourbon, I think it's the second bottle beyond what I already knew that I purchased was the Jefferson's, just the basic small batch. And I had that for a while. It was coveted and it was delicious. And so always, I remember that, you always remember that kind of thing. So when you get to talk to the master distiller now, how long, Jade, have you been the master distiller from the start?
Oh, no, I'm actually the third one there. The founder was kind of the Steve Thompson, right, kind of the default when we got rolling. Then Trip Stemson, that's over at Barrel Craft Spirits. Then we had a couple years where we had 3 lead distillers and we kind of fought it out a little bit, had a little bit of time to work on our resumes and build some skill sets. And then I got it about 3 years ago.
Okay. So you've been doing it for the last 3 years. And it's kind of like one of the things that I've been down to Kentucky a bunch of times, and you guys are going to be the last couple of times. I had it as a destination. But at the same time, it's like every time we go down there, it's so jam packed and we pack a ton of stuff. But this time we're going to be down there for Kentucky Bourbon Festival in September, probably a couple other times for some barrel picks and whatever. And then also in June for that Bardstown. But you guys are the Bardstown barbecue. Okay. Now, are you guys actually participating in that barbecue?
I haven't seen anything signed up, but also normally I'm one of the last people to know. So normally they've got it scheduled. Once they've got it all linked in and it's permanent, then they'll start looking for who's going to go and roll through the events. Okay.
Yeah. But this year when we, definitely we're going to be making it there. So as far as I understanding initially when I was buying the Jeffersons, and then when I bought Oceans, and then eventually making the association with the Kentucky Artisan Distillery, and kind of explain how initially was everything initially your distillery and you guys waited for, as far as aging, or were you purchasing and then eventually switching over to your?
Yeah. So the Jeffersons family was launched by Trey Zoller, and he's the master blender. And now they're part of the Pernod Ricard family, and they are a partnership with us and a part owner of Kentucky Artisan Distillery. So they've got a portfolio of barrels that are over 20 years old. This will be their 25th year that they've been in business. So they've got a collection of barrels that they've got from that whole entire period of time. We partnered with them about 8 years ago, doing a lot of their barrel finish work. We did the barrel aged Manhattan, the Twin Oak, rum cask, Pritchard Hill, pretty much all of the barrel finish work we've done. And we do a lot of their bottling, their single barrels. We do all of those in-house. And we also distill new distillate for them. We put down a few thousand barrels. And I get the advantage of getting to work with Trey with regards to when he has these ideas. I kind of get to be the boots on the ground, relay that as, how does it transfer from paper to actual operations, and then get to work with Ethan and the team there at Kentucky Artisan.
That sounds exciting.
Exciting and a heck of a way to learn.
Now, as far as the Ocean brand, that is going out now. It's just explain. I read a lot about it, but I'm just going to leave that up to you to explain.
Yeah. Who came up with the concept of that?
I think the pirates, right?
Well, I meant in the modern contemporary.
So, originally, like most things in the bourbon industry, they're either accidental or a result of drinking themselves. So Trey, again, was out for one of his birthdays with his close friend, Chris Fisher. He's still partnered with us on that program at the O-Search. And they were out on the boat and they were just watching their bottle kind of slosh back and forth as it sat on the bow of the boat. And, they said, well, what would happen to barrels if we did that as well? So they started with a couple barrels that sat out there for a few years. And when those barrels came back, they were significantly over oaked. They were dark as night, super acidic. And it kind of became that research project where, 3 years was too long. Let's try the other edge. Was 3 months enough? And now our sweet spot is somewhere between 6 months to a year, depending on the route that it's taken, the weather that it encounters, and everything else along the way. So it's quite the process. It's really cool. I've actually been out there on the O-Search vessel while they're out tagging sharks. I got to go out. They picked us up out near Hilton Head. We spent a few days out there. It was beautiful and a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds just like a dream.
I bet you were.
And bourbon too.
When you were tagging the sharks, were you keeping down the alcohol consumption?
No, to get me to tag the sharks, you'd have to increase the alcohol consumption.
I'm with him on that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Really cool divide between, they've got the people that are the fishermen and the captains of the boat. And then they also have a full crew of scientists that are on board. And if they do land one, they've got moments and they'll go through and try, 30 different tests that they're running within just 2 or 3 minutes to get the sharks back in the water because they don't harm them at all. So it's really cool. And then they actually tag them and you can follow those on the O-Search's website. So we have a shark that's tagged for the brand. You can go and follow the Jefferson's shark. It's a big male shark. It's really cool.
That is cool.
That sounds awesome.
It does.
Being who you are as far as the master distiller, it would probably be a dream to go on one of those 6-month tours around the world. It's just like every single, but you probably can't get off. Maybe when you retire, right? They'll take you on one.
Yeah,
he'll just leave me in charge. Things will get taken care of. He won't have a job when he comes back.
Yeah, I love to fish, so being out there was awesome. Being able to just watch that process, be part of it. But then we also did a single barrel pick while we were out there. So we did, selected at sea. It was pretty cool and a one-of-one experience.
So did you, that selected at sea, did that go to special, or did you bring that back and sell it in the distillery, in the gift shop?
That was a liquor barn.
A liquor barn. Okay.
Tell me how long they're at sea again. Give us that.
It's usually between 6 months to a year.
Now, is that usually the final 6 months or the beginning 6 months?
Last. Yeah, that's the finishing process. We're taking that, 6+ year bourbon, bringing it back. We do that processing work here in Kentuckt Artisan. So whether it's the bourbon or the rye, we prep all those barrels, get them ready to ship out, get all the processing work done. They go out. Usually, that next year comes around after they've been out for that aging process. They come back and we'll do all the final process work on it, dump the barrels, filter it, get them ready for bottling. And if it's specialty bottling, we'll do it right there at Kentuckt Artisan.
Okay. So that is from other stock, or did you guys distill that now?
There's been some of both.
Okay.
So we do have barrels out there. That's one of the things we're working with right now. And Trey's really excited about. Hopefully in the next year or so, we'll be putting out products that are straight from the distillery, not blended in and not, a mix of other things. We've only released one. We did the Jefferson's Journey. I don't know if you guys have seen the smaller bottles, the 200 mLs.
Yeah.
It's in that wood case. That was our distillate. So that actually went down the Ohio, down the Mississippi, then switched to a flat bottom boat and went down to Florida, then back up the coast of New York and back to Louisville by rail. Yeah, that's those guys right there. And that was to show the difference between aging in Kentucky versus aging out on the water on a small scale.
Well, and then also aging on the train. Yeah, just the motion and the movement. There's as you know, right now, probably because of your testing, there is a scale of years, months on the ocean equals this many years that and it's kind of like, it makes sense. I mean, if it's always, it's quicker, even if there's a lot of storms, right? They got to kind of get back quicker because it's just being sloshed around.
Yeah, every time you cross those weather fronts, that barometric pressure changes. It sweats it back in and out of the barrels even faster. So it's a huge help on that side.
Yeah, and then just leaving in colder temperatures, going onto the equator, the other side, then coming back to that just all helps.
Do you find you have more losses that way?
Yes, generally we see probably about a 10% more loss from that. And that's, a lot of that's due to that heat. Those barrels, when they're sitting in that singular position, dry out a little bit on anywhere where the liquid's not touching. We get a little bit of sloshing going, and anything that's bumping up into that area wants to just get sucked back up in that wood with that heat.
Are the barrels exposed to salt spray?
It depends on which boat they're on, to be honest with you. So there is some boats that are container style, and there's other ones like the O-Search where they're open deck.
Right.
So depending on what the weather was, even on the container ship, they're not airtight. So
I can see if they're hit with a salt spray, and then if it starts to,
well, it works both ways.
Well, it does work both ways, but that would cause it. That would enhance, or if that's the word for it, the expansion, the contraction, because of the nature of the salt water versus no water, or
you can tell all the barrels that come back with the bands, they're raw steel. So all the ones that are exposed on those ocean vessels come back significantly more rusted,
corroded. Yeah. Okay.
You can look at them when they roll back off those trucks. When we're coming out, your hands are covered in all the rust and dust.
Your hands are all reddish brown.
Yeah. So right away which ones were out there.
You have to paint the barrel bands with what they paint the hull of ships with, that copper impregnated paint,
or that navy gray, like everything ends up.
Yeah. Destroyer gray, Dodge calls that. Yeah.
All right, so that was a good start for sure. So what we'll do is we'll start the podcast. The audio is going to go along with the video right now. So
Dant Crossing, Gethsemane, Kentucky. Timeless hospitality that stirs the spirit. Dant Crossing is a one-of-a-kind destination for unforgettable weddings, memorable corporate events, day trips, and weekend getaways. The pastoral campus is anchored by Log Still Distillery and includes an amphitheater that seats 2,000, a 12-acre lake for fishing, and unique lodging options, creating an immersive experience that's rooted in the community and culture of our little slice of Kentucky. More attractions will open soon at Dant Crossing, including our 21,000 square foot distillery, which we will have the ability to produce 15,000 barrels of spirit each year, a network of wooded walking trails, fully functional private train depot, farm-to-table restaurant, and the Legacy, a premier wedding and events venue. Whether you're looking to host an event, book a stay, or reserve a tasting, we're ready to welcome you. Learn more at dantcrossing.com.
Spirits of French Lick is proud to introduce the Maddie Gladden Bottled and Bond Bourbon. This 4-year aged bourbon is double pot distilled and non-chill filtered, and has a full-bodied mouthfeel with eucalyptus, molasses, clove, ginger, and slight citrus, as well as grains of paradise. The finish is long and reappearing on the back of the tongue with notes of pepper, tobacco leaf, and mint green. All of our spirits are available for tasting and purchase inside the French Lick Winery and Distillery. Spirits of French Lick. Respect the grain, please enjoy responsibly, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
All right. Welcome back to another podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Tonight we have a super podcast lined up. We have Jade Peterson from Kentuckt Artisan Distillery, and you remember.
And Ethan,
right. Whitmore, right?
Ethan Whitmore.
Is that right?
From
Whitman. Thank you.
Ethan Whitman from the same distillery.
Well, just the Kentuckt Artisan Distillery.
Kentucky.
Yes, but it's funny because I really suck at names. It's horrible. It's just like there's some people where if I've kind of got to know you, Jade, like we've been talking for probably a month or two, that's not a problem. But just meeting somebody, it just goes away.
It takes
Even
two
though,
of us.
yep.
I remembered the first name and Tiny got the last name, more or less.
Yes, and I'm Tiny, and this here's Xavier. We
Greetings,
didn't even
everyone.
do that on the first part.
No, we didn't.
You guys are like, who are these guys?
This is Tiny. I'm Xavier.
Yes. All right. So we had we had been talking a little bit on YouTube, and what we want to cover for this particular podcast is it's exciting what you guys are doing down there. I really think from when you started this and how well established you're getting, and we were talking about how you have distillate that now is being used and it's getting close to a lot more of what you've been laying down and putting in the barrels. And then probably the one thing I didn't ask is that I've seen a good amount of expansion, correct? You guys have been expanding. Jay, just kind of get into that because you guys are it's bigger and just everything, right?
Yeah, so the first month I actually worked in the distillery, transferred in off the bottling line. We made 8 barrels. For reference, this last month we did over 350, which for us is massive.
Wow.
We're one of the larger producing small craft distilleries, not really up on that next level, with the big boys yet. And I like that middle ground where we're at because it gives us a lot of leeway with being close to the clients and not losing touch on that side. But as far as expansions go, pretty much every 6 months to a year, we've made changes in the distillery, whether it was moving up in different size pot stills, moving from pot stills to our new column still, tripling our fermentation size to 2,700 gallons. And just this last week, we added a new 3,000 gallon cooker and 3 brand new 5,400 gallon fermenters. So we're looking to double our production again in the next 12 months. And it's a really exciting time. We're really happy to get that new equipment.
I think on Facebook, I saw the fermenter and just that brand new fermenter. And you had a mash going in there, right? Fermenting.
Yeah. We don't have the luxury of shutting down or bringing in engineers. So we get to be the plumbers, part-time electricians, engineers, all of it. So we actually had them brought in. They dropped them off with a crane and a giant boom forklift, stood them up and pretty much said, good luck. So we got to move them into place, and we spent 2 or 3 days getting everything lined up, get the cooling hooked up, all the agitation, and away we went. So we were actually only down for production for 48 hours.
That's
where we had
pretty
nothing
good.
in fermentation or distillation, which I was so excited. Brian, our production manager, and the whole team did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, I just the bourbon boom and everything that's out there now. I'm just being your size and then having your recognition, especially up here in Ohio. I don't know what the distribution is across the whole United States because, but in Ohio, we pretty much have been getting everything. You know, we even right before tonight, we're tasting Voyage 25, the wheat mash bill. But right before this, I think 24, you guys had put out to finish it up a ton of 350 milliliter bottles, right? The half bottles. Right. Was that driven by the glass shortage, or did you guys just finish it up with those smaller bottles?
Yeah, so that was, as far as I know, in my part of it, that was just a new option that they were looking at, experimenting with. So we've definitely seen issues on the supply chain side, and top to bottom, from barrels, everything that we use in packaging, even pallets to put stuff on, and finding trucks to move everything. So we have had issues in all of those logistics side, but that wasn't spurred by that.
Is it, as far as workers go, helpers, is that rough? Has that been rough too, or has it been okay?
It's kind of tiered. So, the distillery, we've stayed pretty well staffed. We have had a great crew that's been there. Most of the guys for a few years. We've got a couple new guys, Mike and Ben, that just came on this last few months, and they've been doing a great job. And we've got other guys like Ethan here, Phil and Cody, and we just lost a guy named Ian that was been there for multiple years too. So we stayed pretty well staffed and back. We've had guys for a long time. Bottling line, a little bit higher turnover. The tour center's been pretty well staffed as well. So we've been okay overall, but definitely seen a little hit.
Yeah. I think the whole country's seen a little hit. There's no doubt about it. So as far as distillate goes, what do you all make? I mean, is it just whiskey, or do you have other things that you make too?
So once we switched this last year, kind of bumped our production up. We've been sticking just with the whiskey and bourbon production. So we do some rye, a few different wheated bourbons, a few 4 grains, and then we've got a few base bourbons that we work with there.
Well, that's
a pretty broad line.
Yeah, it's a good line, but it's freaking awesome because 100%. It's like you go to a lot of other distilleries and they're putting out some gins or brandies or whatnot. Not that I mind, but it's kind of cool that you guys are concentrating on just the whiskey aspect of it. I think it probably makes you really unique, because I don't know too many that's it, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
right?
The demand is very high. So, I mean, we're selling everything we can make, buying right off the still.
Is it? I mean, that I agree with that 100%. I don't know if there's ever going to be a time where you guys are ever going to be able to make enough, because I mean, everybody, you're looking at all the places, the big places as well, and it's just not enough. It's just like even some of the stuff that you're used to seeing on the shelf is all of a sudden not on the shelf as much, and it's allocated because they can't keep up.
There's stuff that, a year and a half ago, you could walk in and say, yep, I want that, and pick it up and go pay for it. That you have to plan when you're going to get there and know when they're going to get it in stock. And I mean, we're not talking really exclusive stuff either. I mean, the demand is crazy. The other thing that we were told, and I've shared this on other podcasts, but for the sake of the discussion herein, is like when you come out, you're making all those different expressions or product lines that you just enumerated. One doesn't cannibalize the other. It's like the bourbon buyer doesn't decide whether he wants this one or that one. He just buys both.
Or he's happy that he got one.
Or he's happy that he got one. Yeah, and he hopes to get the next one the next time. But it's one expression doesn't cannibalize the other one.
Yeah, they have to be complementary, definitely.
So what do you guys are you guys having anything right now? I saw that you guys were sipping on something.
Yeah, we've got, we just actually killed off a bottle of the Twin Oak.
Okay.
So that's probably my favorite expression that we do. And generally when we do that project, each run, I'll keep a little bit cast strength, because we don't release that one at cast strength. So I keep a little bit for our private tastings. And
capital idea.
Yeah,
we're going to have some now too. This is Voyage
27.
27.
No, 25. We're
Ocean, and this is a weeded expression.
Yep, it's wheat.
Yep.
Yep, the weeded ones are some of my favorites.
So last year, so I had a barrel pick 2 years ago. It was Total Wine, and it was Voyage 17, and it picked up there's a briny aspect to it and everything, and I wasn't like it wasn't that I didn't like it, but it wasn't like you wanted to go out and buy another bottle, right?
Yeah.
So
we were disappointed in the briny aspect. It took me 2 weeks to finish the bottle instead of one. So yeah.
So, but the Voyage, last year I got the Ohio State barrel pick. Okay, they came down by you guys, did a pick for the state of Ohio, and I'm telling you, that bottle tasted like French toast, butter, and syrup. Like that was, and you know how sometimes you have a really good palate day and you get something like that where you get, but then you revisit it and it's not quite the same. That thing was down to when I finished the last pour, I was licking the just dumping the rest of it and licking because it stayed the same the whole time. It was just fantastic. So when I saw 27 was a weeded, I was
25.
20. I keep saying I even put out today on to promote it that well, what I did is before here I do a tasting. It's called Tiny's under 10-minute tasting, and I did it of this particular bottle of 25 Ocean, and I did everything right on the podcast, but this morning when I went to type up the the Facebook, promotion, I put 27, and I did it I shared it with 93 groups, and I had to go back in when I realized it and just turn it to 25.
Arguments you caused to people going into liquor stores saying, "I want Jefferson's 27, damn it."
Well, one guy goes, "The last one I got is 24. How the fuck are you on 27?"
I must have lapsed into a coma. What happened to 25? 27?
Well, he said, did Jade, is that the one they're on now? I was just like, nope, it was my mistake, man. So what Voyage is out there on the ocean right now?
There's usually always two out there, so they kind of keep that divided up just in case anything happens, whether it's weather, customs, or anything like that. So hopefully there's some new exciting releases on the Oceans family that'll be coming out that we're not really allowed to put out there yet, but there'll be some surprises here in the next few months, which we're looking forward to.
Well, then maybe when we get down there, we can do a quick podcast on site, and by then you'll be able to.
When you get closer to the release date, maybe we can get a preview of the surprise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I liked about this is that the nose on this, I was getting like a little bit of the wheat, like a grassy, like a lemongrass or a wheatgrass kind of on the nose. I was getting a very when I find when distillers really want the grain aspect come out in their whiskey, they can do a lot of different stuff, like you said, with the pot still or whatever. It's kind of like as Alan Bishop at Spirit of French Lick says, is respect the grain. And this one has that grain forward kind of nose, but I get a little bit of lemon, and it's just it's delicate on the nose. And for me, a lot of times you get that big caramel and oak and but this one has a couple different really delicate flavors to it.
But there's a subtle caramel there too.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's no doubt that it has the.
Yeah, I think a lot of that burnt sugar, that caramel note, a lot of those Oceans barrels, since they get that extra sweating in and out there, it helps bring that out real to the forefront of the flavor line.
Yeah, but then when you drink it,
without further ado,
Cheers.
Yeah, tonight we're drinking in Scotchy Bourbon Boy Glencairns.
Oh, yes,
but I do get the burnt sugar, and that's kind of on the front, of the palate. but as it goes back, I just get vanilla pudding, like the creamy vanilla pudding. Like it's so, and it's not just a little, it's a lot. And
you get a burnt sugar or peppery aspect of it, but it's got a very smooth, full body, mouthfeel,
yeah, this one is definitely, you could tell it's a wheat. It's got
I'm partial to those wheated mash bills. I love that little heavier drink, a little more body on it. I like that.
right.
I like the excuse me. I do like that. I just only when I get it down my esophagus and not my larynx. The wheated bourbons, I do like them. I lean to a little sweeter taste in my preference, and oftentimes you do pick up that added sweetness. It doesn't kill you, but a little more to the sweet side, which this does.
It's just got straight across. There's an aspect of like, it's a silkiness, like you said, that mouthfeel is really, but what the wheats lack is that like black pepper, or that just that huge punch that you can get from the rye, the heavier rye mash bills that are there. And
you know what's odd is on the finish there, as it's just going down, you pick up a taste of kind of what Tiny was saying that he had on the nose, and you get like there's just a little burst of lemon or citrus there.
Yeah, that little tartness. Yeah,
yep.
Right.
You get it just as it's ready to head down.
Yeah, and then I was this one. I'm coveting this bottle for a while. It was on now. You guys, when you do the Jeffersons that you've been finishing, like you said, you guys are doing a lot of the finishing on the Jeffersons. We just had a Jefferson's Reserve. I didn't get it yet, but it's on the shelf here in Ohio, and it was a state pick for that. But I usually like to try and figure out who's doing those state picks, because in Ohio they have a couple groups that do it, and I'm partial to different groups because they seem to do a better job. So but the rum, there was a rum cask finished this time, and then was it a cognac finished rye? Yeah. So go into that a little bit. How was, how just the thinking on what you're finishing, what the barrels, where you're getting them, and how that's working out.
Yeah, and most of that's tied to Trey and being the master blender there for Jefferson. So he did most of those barrel selections. He traveled with the head of the barrel program, Dan, and they did a lot of that pre-work. It took probably about 2.5 years where we were trying different barrels. We were getting them in from overseas, where we were trying different sizes, different ages, different elevations in the warehouse with those cognac casks coming in with that rye whiskey. And finally, we kind of narrowed it down to 2 different types that we had liked, and for an age range that we liked for that finishing run. And it just finally made its way to market. But like I said, it was years in the research and development side.
I can only imagine.
So when you get those barrels, I know a lot of places that I've talked to, the barrels come empty, but are you guys, because of Trey, are you guys getting them full and getting to drink the cognac first and then?
No. Sometimes when we get our barrels in from California and out west here in the States, they'll still arrive and be pretty wet. But most of the stuff that's coming from overseas, by the time it gets here, I mean, they're not dried out by any means, so you still get a lot of that flavor profile, but it's not quite the same as things that are coming stateside.
Yeah, just a couple 5-6 days opposed to a month or whatever. Right. Yeah, that's a big difference. Okay. So yeah, I like I said, when I did the tasting for this, I believe I did it was at a 90 out of 100, and this voyage is a very good voyage. So
agreed.
But I think you guys are like so hot right now. I remember forever when you guys were doing some of these voyages that you could go to the store and pick them up. But I mean, this voyage sold out in one day.
Yeah, he tells me about it. Of course, I didn't have the flexibility. I'm the only person that works from home, and I can't get my rear end out of the chair because I'm usually taking incoming fire from all directions in my job. So he tells me about it. I send my wife out. Why do I got to go there? Hey, there's a new release of Jefferson's. Got it. So she's on it. Good woman. That's why we've been married for almost 38 years. And they actually link up at the liquor store. He said, yeah, you want to buy this bottle here? So we scored one that morning. And ours is mostly gone now.
Well, I also find what I find is that if you understand how the distribution of your particular liquor store, everybody should have. Now, do you guys have a liquor store where you guys try and get, or are you drinking so much of the Jeffersons and trying all that you really don't do too many other?
I would say earlier on, there wasn't as many perks. Now a lot of it is our supply, and we bottle for a lot of other clients, and a lot of the ownership groups are really generous. So we'll get samples and barrel pulls off of those. So it's kind of a mix. It's pretty rare where I'll go out unless it's something special where they'll be like, oh, hey, while you're here, do you want to pick up this, whatever bottle it is while you're there doing an event or something.
Well, you guys are always in Kentucky. You're in Kentucky. So like that's a whole different ball game than what we do here in Ohio.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a couple distilleries where you can get there, but for the most part, it's kind of like we're trying to pull, like, for instance, this Oceans it is an allocated thing. Okay. But because of the state of Ohio so far behind, it just gets released the day it gets delivered instead of held back as allocated and then released on the day that the store decides to release it. So knowing that, I'm usually right over there on both days.
Yeah, I think it's really funny. Anytime you see any of the special editions Oceans come out, whether it's wheated or cask strength or full rye, I mean, they just fly right off the shelves.
Yeah, even at the tour center, we can hardly keep them on there, but we're allocated there as well. We can only, have a certain percentage of our bottles go through there, so we don't get much more than anywhere else would.
Yeah, and as we all know, what was the world 2.5 years ago, the world is not now. So it's nice that you can go to a distillery and purchase their whiskey, opposed to 2.5 years ago where they just had their base brands out and they were pretty much saying, we're not going to, we don't want to compete with the distributors. But at the same time, we all know you really did want to compete with it because it just made sense. That's where the people were, and so it's nice. The rule changes have been nice. Now, did Kentucky pass what they had in the legislature as far as the barrel pick programs? Did they pass that, or does it still have to be signed by?
I don't know I've seen, the headlines, but I haven't really dove into it too much, but I haven't heard for sure that it has passed or not.
Well, it should. I mean, I just don't understand why you wouldn't pass it. You know what I mean? Oh, we're just going to stop all the barrel picks in Kentucky, but we'll let the rest of the country just do it. That just makes no sense. So anyways, but we're not going to go there, but we just know government no longer makes any sense. Correct. So
if it ever did.
Nah. As the Talking Heads said in their song, same as it ever was, once in a lifetime.
There's such a huge draw, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a way to interact with people that enjoy the brand and get them close to it. So it's they're fantastic.
It's phenomenal to taste what you're tasting on a daily basis. You get it you're getting it straight out of the barrel right in front of you, or sometimes it's samples, but they're not filtered. It's just basically what the whiskey tastes like. Now it's like if you're proofing down, a lot of times you can do those barrel picks, but you have to think in your mind what's going to happen when that proof's down. And at first, when I did it for, I had you don't have quite the idea of what it does. But I've actually been at a barrel pick where the proof down actually made it taste better.
Mhm.
Where I thought the pick was average, and then all of a sudden I open up that bottle and it's just like, holy shit, that really made a difference. And it was only like 12, they went from I think 115 to 103, but it was something. And but then I've had it where you've done it and it completely changes it. It was hugely fantastic, like turn your head bourbon. And then what went into the bottle was just like, oh, that's good, but it wasn't what the pick was. Do you find that too when you're trying to proof down and stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole art to that side of the branding as well. And, we'll sit down and break down barrels and try them at 20, 30 different proofs. And you'd think there's no way that a group of people would be able to identify the similar, group range of, 2 to 3 proof. But you can put samples out at 106, 106.5, 107, 107.5 and do a blind, and you will keep coming back to those same groupings. And one barrel might be there, the next one it might be at 97 or 88 or 115. And it's just so wildly different. It's a lot of fun on that part.
So the other aspect I always like to ask the distillers is that when you're making a blend and you're basically making that small batch and everything's going together, have you ever done it where you have one barrel that tastes one way and then you got another barrel that has a bunch of other flavors, and when you blend them, new flavors start to arise?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, every barrel is going to have its own unique properties. So whenever you get into the blending portion, it's very it's crazy what can happen.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of that too with certain brands where you've got, barrels that are only picked from certain floors of brick houses or only top pallets from palletized warehouses, where you're going to get a different flavor profile off of all of those. So you start blending by flavor and not necessarily just by some number that's attached to a barrel. And then you can really start developing those. So a lot of the products we do for Jefferson's and Whiskey Row, even Cream of Kentucky, those are picked by flavor profile, not just a blanket, lot code or distillation date or anything like that.
Yeah. And that is, that's what I always like to get into. People don't understand quite the talent of the tasting of somebody who's trying to take to consistently make a flavor profile. And I really think that art, as far as appreciation, has been lost because in the past, all the way probably up until the mid 80s, that's all that mattered. When you're making those distillers, because it was so hard to keep a consistent flavor profile, that those distilleries that did it always thrived, because you had somebody who understood how to mix it all together and make each batch pretty much taste the same. It didn't change. Now, what I've been seeing lately in a lot of that type of is that the bourbon keeps getting better, like sweeter. And even though the flavor profile changes a little bit, it seems like it's changing to a sweeter, a bigger body kind of thing. Now, I've talked to a couple other distillers and asked them what they thought, why that's been happening. And the general consensus so far has been that the way that the climate's changing, especially with Kentucky having a little bit hotter summers, and then they still have the cold winters, that the aging, what would you say, the last 8-10 years, the aging atmosphere of doing it has been almost perfect. Like there hasn't been anything, and you might have a really cold summer or a really warm, you know what I mean? There hasn't been any of that. It's been pretty much consistent for aging whiskey. And I just would like your thoughts on that. Have you noticed that you're getting a lot more flavor out of a lot more barrels as you keep going along?
I think that's really, I mean, not being overly generic, but really specific to each individual location. So we know that our barrel warehouses age out slightly slower than someone that has, you know, a ricked warehouse. So we know to expect the same aging at 5.5 that maybe they get at 4.25 or something along those lines. And, you know, a lot of the flavor profiles, like you were saying, for consistency and things like that, like our target is to be consistently good, not necessarily always the same exact product.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be slight variations in it, especially with pot distillation like we did for the first years that we were open. Those rums are going to be different flavors, but they can all be good flavors.
Sure.
And that was kind of our target. You know, when you step up to the column game, part of that is to increase your consistency across the board. So that allows us to keep that, but we're still batch distillation. We're still running daily. It's not a, you know, 24/7 continuous column. So it gives us that opportunity to still strive for that, you know, uniqueness of batch distillation, but be a lot more consistent across the board.
So, okay. So based off what you just said, when you shut the column still down, do you have to then treat it like a pot still, clean it out and start over again?
Sure.
Yeah, so we will leave our thumper charged, but all of the distillate that comes off for that last half hour or so, we're collecting that separately. So we definitely do more sensory on it as you get, you know, in the beginning on startup and towards the end. And we'll take that, you know, cup that we've got and we'll blend that over back into the next batch that's going the next day.
Oh, that's interesting. That's awesome. So when you switched over to now, have you been on the column still ever since that, you know, you became the master distiller? Is that it's been that?
Well, I had been working there on the pot stills previously to that, so definitely was, you know, right at the forefront of the switch.
All right. So Jade, where did you initially start? What got you into doing this? And how old are you right now? You seem to be pretty young.
I'm 38. So I moved out of Northern Illinois about 10 years ago, just needed to get out of there. Moved to Kentucky and started a cleaning business and worked part-time on the bottling line at Kentuckt Artisan and just kind of started to like it. Had no idea about anything that was going on there. My background was in operations management, logistics, and facilities management, and kind of fell in love with it. And over the next couple of years, I was building my business on the side and just kept moving up slowly. You know, I was just general labor on a bottling line, then line lead, then supervisor. And as I moved up, got to the point where I had to decide to sell my business and stick with the distilling. And I chose to do that. Went back to school at Western Kentucky University, did some international trainings, and, you know, just kept raising my hand and being willing to learn more and keep moving up.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
That's
you know what that is?
Story.
That's America, right? That's why we love living here. Cheers. And you made the right fucking decision, just so you know.
I agree. It's been a wild ride, and you know, it's unexpected. You know, I usually joke when people ask me on a tour, they're like, "Oh, how'd you get in?" I'm like, I was born with the wrong last name. You know, not everybody's handed it, but usually if you're in the industry, you know, generationally you're in the industry. And I got real lucky to get the opportunity from Steve Thompson and Kentuckt Artisan that I did.
Yeah, I'll clap for that one. So, Ethan, how did you start?
So yeah, I'm from Indianapolis. I came down here to the University of Louisville for school. It's because, like him, I wanted to get kind of out of my hometown, get out of my state. And I had been going there, and I was you know, looking for some work because I'd been selling snow cones. Actually, was my last job before this. And one of my friends was working there as an intern at the time, and he said, you know, come apply. There's always room on the bottling line. So like Jade did, I started out on the bottling line, and every day after my shift, I would come back there and kind of bug him and be like, oh, what's this thing do? Oh, why does that thing look like that? What's going on here? And just showing my interest and kind of learning every single day. So just
You
something-
kind of sound like me. I look at something that's going to say, and I always say to myself, why
Mhm.
is this? Why does this look like this? Why is it shaped like this? What's its function? How does that play into the overall picture?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by things like that. Very.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that I was granted this opportunity too, because our team is very young, and like Jade said, none of us are generational. We're all just this is all our first time in distilling. So I've learned everything I know from there. I've taken some outside courses, and it's been an incredible ride. And I'm just moving my way up, just every day. Keep on working, keep learning.
I'll tell you what, gentlemen, if you keep going like you're going, it will be generational, and you guys will be the patriarchs of it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like where I'm actually an artist. Paint, digital paint, traditional painting, and I was in commercial art for a long time. My dad trained me, but what I found out early was that although I don't come across as what would you say, a well-read person, but if you teach me or show me or get me interested in something, and it's that one thing, the whole industry of that, I can basically focus where my normal artistic brain is all over the place. Okay. But when my father taught me how to do the work with commercial art, and he taught me to be a photographic retoucher with an airbrush when there was no computers, and you basically had to be very disciplined for that. And I didn't have a lot of discipline as a kid, but he showed me how to do that. That's one thing I thank my father for. So as I went into the computer aspect of art, and then as the Macintosh came into things, the business kind of dissolved, and I went into, I came to Canton, Ohio, and I became a plant manager of a recycling firm, which is very similar to running a distillery, believe it or not. Even some of the equipment, what you use to mill the grain, you know what I mean? That we grind up plastic with it's the same motors, the same problems. It's kind of like in recycling, it's all the hydraulics, or if some part of that distillery shuts down, like sometimes it's just one little computer thing, right? And it's like the whole damn place is shut down, and then you have that pressure of trying to get it up and running again, right?
They're both very process intensive operations. Right. My background, I'm like Jade, operations and personnel management. That's what my degree is in. But for the last almost 32 years, that's not what I've really done. Why, a little bit, but mainly my emphasis has been IT. And I had an opportunity to get into it, and I didn't really know that much about computers. But like what Ethan said, is like you get fascinated by something, and once you don't have informal training, you're learning on your own and figuring it out. And what I always say is that I've always applied the elephant principle. How do you make a statue of an elephant? Well, you start with a block of marble, hammer, and a chisel, and you chip away everything that doesn't look like an elephant. And that's pretty much how you go about problem solving. And when so much of it, everybody thinks IT, that you're some kind of wizard or guru. And it's like, no, most of it, about 90% of it is just common sense. 10% of it is specialization, I would say. And that's kind of what I got into, and I became a network engineer. And I have to say that I'm not a real slow engineer or a real fast engineer. I'm just sort of a half-assed engineer. So,
yeah, our biggest thing there with for me was learning as we expanded was, you get the new equipment, you have to install it. You learn how it works, how, where does the hot go? Where does the cold go? How does it function? What's that transfer?
Yep. You can't know how to make it till you know 10 ways to break it.
Yeah. And that's how I tell all the new guys now, like, mistakes are going to happen, but that's how you learn. That's how you become a better distiller. is recovering from those and keeping it going, and what has to be done to prevent it. If everything goes good and all you have to do is watch for some light to turn from green to red or yellow and you hit another button, I mean, you're in the distilling industry, but it's quite a bit different.
Right. Well, I look at like finally I was in, doing what I was doing. But then when I started looking into whiskey, what I fell in love with was, one, the history, the fact that this basically funded our whole country. Without whiskey, we don't exist as the United States. There's no doubt about it. It made it made all the money.
Without whiskey, we probably would have colonized Mars by now.
Right.
That's a whole other story.
but the artistic aspect, the artisan aspect of it, and what you guys are doing there, you've got that experimental aspect of it, which allows you to be creative, right? Your rum casks, cognac casks. It's a creativity that didn't exist it really wasn't accepted even when I got into this like 4 years ago. It used to be, you'd get these guys that it's like, oh, you put it in a rum cask. That's not bourbon. I'm not going to drink that. But now it's so much more accepted because it's like this art form is becoming more accepted because so much deliciousness of it, is there. And then all the food pairings that happen. But what I fell in love with is the process. When I went on my first distillery tour, seeing those fermenters. I mean, if I was if I was one of the fermenters at a distillery, my breakfast would consist of the mash bill at the top. I'd just be basically scooping that in, and just that is just, it's so good. That would be
mash classic.
And there's the part of distilling is you get into that distiller beer, and that's not White Dog. It's a whole different animal in itself, but you start to understand those flavors that are coming out, and then the whole, you can say it, but the whole yeast aspect of it, how yeast, it's basically yeast eats the sugar, shits the alcohol. And you can wreck it by it not being as productive. You make it shit less.
Nothing worse than lazy, constipated yeast.
Exactly. And when you think about that concept, it's so fucking cool. And then some people catch their yeast and use it. And then other people have but everybody has their way of doing it. There's a consistent thing, but you guys as a craft distiller, I'm sure you have a little bit of leeway to change things from time to time, correct? The experimental aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Jeff wants to scoop up the mash and put his milk on it and have it for cereal, which is amazing because usually most mornings now I take my Cheerios or cornflakes and pour bourbon over it. So it's kind of the same principle, only in reverse.
Yeah, there may have been a couple mornings where it's really early and he comes in and sees me with just a bowl of malted barley, just scooped it.
That'd be pretty good. Just taking that and put some strawberries on it and some milk and some sugar.
Every time we get malt samples in, I just sit there and eat them, and there'll be Munich or some kind of American honey malt, and they just sit there and gnawing on it.
I mean,
the only way to get to know it.
Do you guys get a lot of chocolate malts? Because some of that chocolate malt mash, when you see that just bubbling and whatever, and it's brown, it doesn't look like anything. But the one time that I was able to get in front of that and smell it, it's just so delicious.
Yeah, we did a few private barrels for a couple different groups. One was Michael Veach and Jack Rose Dining Saloon. And we did a hickory cane corn, king cane corn, and chocolate malt. So we put down 4 custom barrels for that group. And when we did it, that mocha coffee note, it made the whole entire distillery smell like a barista was back there brewing coffee.
So are those barrels aging right now?
Yeah, they're about to creep on that 4-year marker. So hopefully here in the next little bit, we might get some bottled and bond release out of them.
Isn't it cool?
That'd be awesome.
I mean, I've seen Michael Veach at a couple events, but I've never met him personally. But he has such a presence, he has to be coming in and tasting them, right? I mean, he comes in.
we drew up some like weird regulations for it because I've got a barrel rotation that I keep them on, and we only taste them in the fall every year. So we decided it was way too easy to start tapping into them and over, critiquing and doing that. And we've had Maggie Kimbrell come in, and Lisa Wicker and Veach. They were the last group that came in. And it's awesome to get to taste through those things with those palates and minds. And like you said, Veach is a personality and a great asset to the bourbon industry.
And it's so friendly. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He does everything for Kentucky bourbon. But you mentioned Lisa. She's going to be on the podcast next. I think she's on for the 10th. But
that'll be a week from tonight.
She sent us a bottle of Decadence, which is basically the 10-year aged in maple syrup bottles. I mean barrels. And that I look forward to tasting. I got to open it a couple days in advance.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. All right. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing, as a master distiller and distiller, the people in the industry and what they portray and give you towards history. And if you're always willing to learn, and I really have not run into a master distiller yet that's not willing to learn. And that's the thing. What I find and I love about podcasting is meeting people, Jade, like yourself. And then when I get to meet you in person, actually when we get together and in person and share a pour, there's just something about the whiskey industry where it's just great down home people. I mean, I spend time some days. I've in the past met Jackson from Preservation, Aaron. Oh my God, Aaron Harris from Watershed, who came from Lux Row, and then yourself. And it's like when people start to get into somehow that they know what your thought process is, and somehow that just because you're not that you were brought up through the distillery and the process, that somehow that you suck at it. You know what I mean? I spend days on the internet just basically defending it, going, and who are you? Oh, I've picked lots of barrels. It's like, and how much whiskey have you distilled? You know what I mean? And you get all these crazy, and you know what it's like, right? Just becoming, the match, whatever. But 98% of most people just love what you're doing, right? And that's what you got to go by, because you're producing really good products with a lot of creativity. I mean, for them to take the barrels out on the ocean, and then the finishing that's going on, it's really exciting. And then how the distillery is growing.
Quite frankly, if there's a more unique concept currently in aging, I haven't heard it.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah, but like you said, there was experimental process. There was a time that was on the water too long and it came back. What did you do with those barrels?
I think that the original set, I think Trey had 5 out there, and actually only 3 of them came back. The other 2 had lots of nail holes and leakage, but probably a lot of sipping as well.
Yeah.
So they were kind of kept around for R&D purposes, and some of them were bottled up for charity type style stuff. But there was like 1A and 1 for the voyage that actually was marketable and sellable.
Well, when you think about it, there are the people who think Pappy 23 is good. It's like the 15. I've had the 15, fantastic, but when you get into the 20 and the 23, too much oak for me. But there's those pallets there, and when you're only talking a couple barrels, you're talking about 100% that there's people who like that oak, right?
Yeah.
We might not like it, but there's so many different palettes. I mean, that's how I got my wife into this, because she loved an oaky Chardonnay. And so when I would find a little bit oakier bourbon, I just like, sip on this, take this. And she was not a whiskey fan. But as she sipped more and more and started to understand the different flavors that you can pull out, and believe, someone's going to hate me for this, but I believe that bourbon can be way more complex than wine. I think wine with the fruity grapiness, there's a lot of different grapes and all that, but what you're drinking pretty much gives you the idea. If you've been drinking certain kind of the certain brand plus the certain type of wine, you know what you're getting into. There's good, bad, but overall that flavor profile is similar or whatever. But with bourbon, you just get so many different things happening, right?
Yeah,
I just think
a lot of that is, like we talked about before, you adjust that proof, you add a cube, you add a drop of water, and you completely change those profiles too. So it's you get to choose your own adventure. You get to move that book along in the direction that you want.
And the one thing that doesn't get talked about is there's the aspect of what we're doing tonight, sipping, relaxing, that type of thing. But then there's an aspect of drinking and relaxing, and then there's the aspect of shots. But all of them, I mean, honestly, there's bourbons that are really good shots. You know what I mean? And then there's bourbons that if you add some ice and start drinking, it holds up. And then there's the sipping ones, which,
there's sipping bourbons and shooting bourbons.
But it's all the mood, right? It's covered. And it's like there's really not the wines where you just, well, I suppose there's a cheap wine that gives you a hangover, but at the same time, you can do some really good, there's a couple times my son and myself, he's 23 years old, and I'm like, hey, do this, and let's just do this. Let's just slam them. And there's, way better stuff than Jack Daniels.
I'm going to grab another sample to sip on.
Okay.
You get to talk to me now.
Cool.
The one thing I wanted to mention, I think our industry is just so unique in so many ways. One of those being that what I've always said is time and time again, the industry has shown that it's competitive, but you're competing with yourself. It's not like, say, car manufacturers that are trying to just, beat out the opponent. Everyone in the industry kind of works together.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's because y'all can't make enough. If you ever get to the point where you're making enough, that would change the whole industry, but you can't. It's just like the more you make, the more you sell. Unless you're producing the worst thing, in my opinion, that you can do. And I'm not going to, I'm not saying it can't be done.
Oh, that's what we're doing.
Rapid aging.
No.
Rapid aging. I understand aging on the ocean, right? You're talking about, it's not like you're rapid aging or trying to age it quicker. You're seeing what the flavors that come out, okay? And it does pick it up. But rapid aging is the hard part for me because I've never tasted rapid aged bourbon that then they're like, this is 6 years old. This tastes exactly like a 6-year-old. We analyzed this, and then you taste it and you just basically want to spit it back into their face. That there's just no way. It doesn't taste the way it should. Now, I'm not saying somebody isn't going to be able to come up with it, but as far as I'm concerned, now I've tasted people who produce really good younger whiskey. I mean, right now, Bill Hockett at the Dayton Barrel Works up in Dayton, Ohio, he came and he's producing whiskey, and I've tasted it at 9 months, and it's a wheated mash bill, and it basically tastes delicious. I mean, he's got it going, and there's going to be a point when it's going to be ready, but it's still, it still has the little bit of youngness to it, but it's quality bourbon. But everybody always wants to rapid age it, but why do you want to do that? Because isn't the whole aspect of when you're sitting back on your back porch drinking a quality bourbon, that the time and the history and everything that went into this is what makes it even taste even better?
I'm not a distiller, and I'm not saying that this is Bill Hockett's or anybody else's motivation. but the rapid aging gets you to a taste level where it's more quickly movable to market, and you're getting inventory off your floor and
Right.
onto the market.
Well, we
And
understand why.
I would think that
Yeah,
that
we
has to
had-
come into it in some way.
Yeah, we had decided early on with our ownership group that they weren't going to sell clear, so we decided we weren't going to sell moonshine. We weren't going to move on and do something else. Now, we've definitely experimented. We've got barrel aged gins, and we've done, we've actually sold our white dog to other people that have, bottled it and put it out as, their moonshine or white dog along those lines. And it's quality product. It just wasn't in our business model at the time. We've also looked at, experimental packs where, you may be able to at some point, this is what it would be on day one, day, 365, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years. Other distilleries have done that. And there's a niche for that, but it's that person that's interested in, like you said, that development of the product, not necessarily the lack of cost on that, white dog versus putting it in a barrel. So I mean, one of our biggest, expense increases this last year with COVID and all the logistics issues is barrels. It's been a huge jump in cost there.
Yeah, it's not that there's a shortage of wood, there's a shortage of workers to get the wood out of the forests. And it is what it is what it is, right? and if that causes a jump in price, but I think right now the way that the bourbon industry is set, they can handle a little bit of push here or there without actually having to raise their prices. But it'll be like anything else. If this just keeps up, we need, I think we have a people shortage here in the United States. Everybody always talks about a worker shortage, but it's a worker shortage not based in the fact that people aren't working. Because, I mean, when you look around, all my friends are still working. Everybody's back to work and they're still working. It's not that they're not working. What it comes down to is they changed the way the workers are set up. And there's like, just think about trucking. You're having a problem getting enough truckers. One of the reasons why is because the United States changed. They basically make all the truckers have trackers now, in their trucks. They can only drive 10 hours and then they have to be off for 8 hours. They have to be shut down for an hour for lunch, all this type of stuff. So what one trucker used to be able to do 3 times the amount of work that he was able to do before, if he was able to sleep 2-3 hours in his cab, get up, drive, and then when it was done. So what happened is we needed to double the amount of truck drivers we needed. Plus, if you look at FedEx, UPS, and Amazon, now everybody has everything delivered to their house. Those are all great jobs, correct? But where did those people come from to do those jobs? Well, they came from a lot of the industry that they were probably loggers. You know what I mean? The loggers were getting paid this, and now they can make this, and then they don't have to basically go out every day and worry about chopping their legs off or whatever. So a lot of the industries have suffered. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, you're still you have to pay more, but you're still getting the barrels, correct?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, who do you buy your barrels from?
We've kind of got a good relationship with a few different cooperages. So Kelvin Cooperage in Louisville's our main source. We also work with Independent Stave and West Virginia Barrel Company a little bit as well.
So you've been working with the West Virginia Barrel Company. How do you like working with them? His name's escaping me, but he's a great guy. Yeah. I talk to him all the time. Greg Schneider, who works with Bardstown Bourbon Company to produce chicken cock, he basically goes there and picks all the staves, particularly from the trees they chopped from the shade side of the mountain. I mean, yeah, it's crazy how detailed he gets. But have you
counting the rings and how dense the?
Yeah, no, they produce a good quality barrel, and we've got no issues with them and like doing business with them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and get down there. I think March 16th or 17th he's going to be down there, so I'm going to visit them. And we were this past summer at the Independent Stave Company, so.
That was quite a neat tour.
Yeah.
Love it.
So you got 3 people producing your barrels.
Yeah.
All right. Do you get different flavors off of each barrel, or haven't you gotten to that point yet?
We kind of allocate them to different clients. So there's definitely a different flavor profile that comes out of the different cooperages. So we try and keep, our Jefferson's line with One Corner Creek, Whiskey Row, Coalition. We've got different groups that go with different barrels. Try and keep that more consistent.
Okay. Now the last question, what do you think percentage wise? How much do you do for yourself? How much do you distill for other people? What's going on with that?
Currently we're probably 99 plus for other people. So we really used our business model the last couple of years to be able to contract distill for others and use that to kind of raise capital to be able to do our expansion. So what other distilleries may have put down barrels early on, we decided, to buy fermenters, buy a column. We were cash purchases and just kind of built ourselves up that way. And part of our new capacity in these newest expansions will let us start putting down more barrels for ourselves for the future.
Well, that's, there's nothing wrong with that.
That sounds like the
so
perfect
there you
model.
go. That's the business model of, you're not selling moonshine, you're contract distilling and growing based off of,
But you're still moving product. The more product you have, that's costing you money in terms of revenue and taxes, because our illustrious federal government taxes your inventory.
So do you age for people too?
Yeah, we have 4 warehouses that are on the same road as the distillery, and we usually keep between 30 and 34,000 barrels at our facilities right now.
All aging. And it's just like when you're in Bardstown and then you drive by the Heaven Hill, it's the where they're aging, and you're just like, wow. And then when we first came down initially in 2019, Bardstown Bourbon Company was just new. Okay. They just were. And then the field that when you get off the highway, it was empty. And now it's everywhere you go, everything, it's like the business to be in to make a real lot of money. That is the rick house, building the rick houses, right? Because they just never stop. They're just constantly.
That just blows me away. It's just constant construction. The boom, because of the demand, is just phenomenal.
Now, what type of rick houses do you guys have? Warehouses?
We run palletized warehouses.
Barrel storage.
So palletized, you keep them, you age upright, not sideways.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And is it temperature controlled, or do you leave it wide open?
It's up to God.
Yeah, it's natural.
I know a lot of palletized that are temperature controlled also, but yeah. All right. So now this is the part where I let you guys, is there anything you guys want to put out there that we haven't asked? We've asked a lot of questions, but is there something that you would like to say, either one, that, you want to get out there message wise about Jefferson's?
No, I think for Kentucky Artisan, our biggest thing is that, we produce for a wide variety of customers, and we're open for tours and tastings. So we love to have everybody come by, and you never really know what you're going to see when you show up. Like, we could be dumping Oceans barrels. We could be doing Cream of Kentucky for Jim Rutledge single barrels. So it can be anything, from $200 bottles of Presidential through, $40 bottles of someone else's bottom tier. And, we have fun. We try and keep it all original and the way distilling is supposed to be. So we love interacting with the customers when they come in, and hope everybody gets to come down. Hope you guys get to come down and we can do a podcast live from the distillery.
Wow. That would be great.
You don't have to hope. It's happening.
That's
going to happen.
Yeah. It's not a matter of if, it's when.
Now, do you have a single barrel program that you released the single barrels into the gift shop, or is that or don't you do that?
Each brand that we work with manages their own independently. So Jefferson's definitely has theirs that they roll through. Whiskey Row's getting ready to do that here shortly. So there's lots of opportunities, and there's always rotating stock in the gift shop. So we have different things that are pretty limited that come out up there.
Well, I'm looking forward to tasting Whiskey Row because I have not tasted that. And up here in Ohio, it's not something you can just buy off the shelf, or even it's not even been through an allocation. How new is that brand?
Whiskey Row's actually been out for, I want to say, about 6 years now. It was Steve Thompson, our original founder. He passed away last year, but his brand's still up and going. Ethan's got this bottle. That's the bottled and bond there.
I've seen the bottle.
So it's usually a blend of 4-grain whiskeys, usually all from the Ohio River Valley, and then it's our whiskey as the base, and the bottled and bond, of course, is all our whiskey there. Price points between $29 to $79, depending on if it's a single barrel bottle and bond or whatnot. But it's a good bourbon, a good 4-grain to get in on.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be pick. Now, you guys sell that in the gift shop?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, when I get down there, that'll be fun to taste. All right, so it was wonderful having both of you on, getting to know you.
Yep, it sure was. We realized that in your positions that you're probably not sitting around in any hour of the day or the night, twiddling your thumbs saying, gee, what am I going to do tonight? So we really appreciate the fact that you allocated some time for us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
We appreciate the inclusion. Thank you.
All right, everybody. This was I was excited about this podcast, and you guys definitely delivered. So remember, www.scotchybourbonboys.com. Check us out. You can check out the Patreon from there. We also podcast on all major formats, and you can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I think I got that covered, right?
I heard you.
There you go. Well, that's the podcast, whatever. So all formats, that's what it is. Every second and fourth Friday of the month, we do Whiskey Live. We pick one bottle, and we get as many Scotchy Bourbon Boys together to rate and come up with the Scotchy Bourbon Boy rating. So with that said, remember, good bourbon equals good times and good friends, and go out and live your life dangerously.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die.
Boom, boom. All right, we're still on YouTube a little bit, so I'm just gonna start doing this processing of the actual audio podcast. What we usually do is I will load the audio tonight, and then I'll edit tomorrow the video, and then have that up either tomorrow night or the next day. And all of it I push on social media.
Cool. Beautiful. So my follow is just a distiller on Instagram.
Okay.
I don't know what.
Yeah. Mine is Ethan's the man. One word.
Ethan's the man.
And Ethan's the man. All right, we'll say that. Okay, we got to go to. Yep.
And there's no I, so it's ETHANS. Wait, Ethan's. Yeah,
I can send it.
I'll send it to you. I'm dyslexic, so
don't worry about it. It's like of all the people that don't worry, I fuck up so bad. It's just like it's unbelievable sometimes. It's just like, but that's an aspect of what we do. So everything, unless there was a technical difficulty, I just let it ride. I don't do a lot of editing, especially when it comes to the audio podcast, and that's where I have the biggest following. Pretty much everyone that I do within the first 2 months usually has 150 to 300 downloads off the audio. Now we're starting to push YouTube, which we're still talking on right now. Mm-hmm. And that I'm basically it just depends on what it is. We've gotten 350 downloads, or sometimes we get 12. I mean, and I try and push it all, but what I'm hoping for as we keep going forward is eventually people are going to check it out. And you guys, we've done 165 podcasts with the Scotchy Bourbon Boys as far as audio, and we're getting better. So we finally got it to the point where we're really happy to be putting out the content, because we've got sponsorship, we've got everything kind of going, and it's really the ball's rolling. So the more we appreciate your time, and I hope it just puts out,
sure do.
You know, there Kentuckt Artisan Distillery isn't as related to the Jefferson's line unless somebody really wants to look into it, you know, and so that's what I kind of want to do, you know, here to introduce, you know,
get some
everybody to the distillery.
And
and everything I've been hearing about the distillery has been just phenomenal. You know, you guys have just the whole experience that you offer and everything, and that's just something that you know, everybody in Kentucky is doing their part and giving something unique, but you still want to get down there and experience everybody's uniqueness, you know.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, it's not just a standard, you know, let's just do this. Everybody's got their own little twist, their own little thing, and it's just so unique when you go down there. But what's great is the people, and you guys are just, it's great. You're everyday people doing something, and you understand what it means to history, and at the same time, I still haven't met a master distiller that's just an asshole. I have not, and I've
out there. They really are. They're out there. You know, it's kind of funny at work and everywhere else. Like, I don't go by that title, you know, and
I get it.
Things where, you know, there's people in this industry that have absolutely earned it, and you know, I kind of have it by default because of my role. And at work, you know, I'm the ops manager. You know, I try and organize.
Yeah, I get it. Well, but even you know, Fred and Freddie know. It's like they're not sitting there going, oh, I mean, you're talking about 7th and 8th generation beams, okay?
Right.
But they still are just everyday people in the industry. They're
Fred and Freddie and Fred's wife Sandy. They are just the most awesome people ever.
Yeah.
Just
there's
down
been
to
no
earth, friendly.
I mean, I think there's been maybe 2 or 3 out of, let's say, 100 people that I've, you know, bumped into in the industry that weren't really willing to help. Everyone else has been, you know, amazing, and it's great because it's always learning and sharing that stuff. And it's been,
you know, there's a bigger sense of brotherhood, or is it maybe sisterhood and community in the bourbon distilling industry than anything I've ever encountered.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's what I love. I mean, I'm a people person. At work, I manage people, and I'm good at it. But at the same time, when I get to see you know, and meet, you know, different people, and how much most of the people I meet, eventually, it's almost like they're part of a family. Mm-hmm. And it's just like that is what's so great about the distilling industry, because everybody understands the product you're trying to put out and the difficulty. There's a huge amount of difficulty and problems, but it's every day. You guys are everyday people. That's what it comes down to. Whether you're in recycling, whether you're in any other, you know, baking bread or whatever, everyday people have to produce and deal with all the problems, right?
Yep. 100%. I mean, any day you come to the distillery, you're going to see Jade back there with me. I mean, we spent all day yesterday and today running pipes. So we're getting down and dirty. There's no sitting in the office or twiddling your thumbs, like you said. And it's very very humbling. It's very real.
And,
You know,
and what you do with your downtime usually is like hang out with the people coming through the distillery, right?
Mhm.
It's work, but it's enjoyable work, right?
Oh,
I mean,
Most of the time.
it can get stressful, but I mean, he's been there 8 years. I've been there almost 4.
what
And
job's not stressful?
If you're not getting some
It's
stress,
work.
you don't have enough of your life into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It's still work.
It's-
And if you can enjoy a majority of it, you're definitely winning.
I mean, going on a vacation is stressful. You may not think of it as such, but you're doing all the planning, you're getting your car ready, or you're making sure you're getting to the airport on time, all the world events, especially now, how they're going to impact you and everything. Not that that's a big consideration. And, there's far more problems in whether or not we get to take a vacation when you have people dying over in Europe. But my point being is even things that we think of as good can be stressful. So the things that that's important to us, and that is making our living, making our livelihood, and establishing our mark on the world, it's natural that's going to be stressful.
Well, that's a cool thing, Jade. It's like no matter what you do, there's going to be an aspect of Jefferson's is a popular bourbon, and at one point in 100 years, somebody's going to be looking into that you were making the bourbon at that time. And that's just, even there's a guy that I know in California. His family came over on the Mayflower. Okay. His 13th grandpa was the governor of Massachusetts. That he came, the first governor of Massachusetts. And they mash billed, they brought the still over and they mash billed for months. It was like 8 months. They just let the yeast go in naturally or whatever. And he's got journals from that. It took 8 months before the mash bill was usable. Up until that point, there was just spoiled and everything. But then eventually the yeast went in there and he's got all this type stuff. But then he's distilling now, that many years, and he has barrels that are from 1877 that have been sitting in caves in California. And it's phenomenal, the history that's attached to distilling. I mean, the Mayflower, although what was the major religion that came over?
They were Puritans.
They were Puritans, which didn't drink, but they brought it over because there was a less what would you say, strict sect of that, but also they used it to distill for services, whatever they were drinking for services. And so he explained that, he said, well, if they're Puritans, they didn't drink, but he explained exactly why and how. So you guys are just a part of something that is it's awesome, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's that part I just love. And then we have talked to, Michael Veach, like you said, talk about a guy that knows about Kentucky distilling. And then you've been talking to Dixie Hibbs, who's in the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame.
She's a historian and an author. And, history, if it would, I came this close to becoming a history teacher. I really love it. And there's very few people I can talk to and feel overwhelmed with facts. And she is one of them. She may be the only one of them. She is just a walking. It's like you've tapped into the Akashic record of Kentucky and the bourbon industry and everything. And I mean, I was just in awe in my conversation with her. It's unbelievable.
You have the written history and then you have the real history, and she knows both.
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
So I want to say something, because what I started to say, we dovetailed into something else, and I want to make it absolutely clear to anybody listening that I don't compare any of our day-to-day problems with what is going on in the world right now. What I articulated was a non-problem. It doesn't even get on the problem list compared to what's happening over in the Ukraine right now. And
Yeah.
our hearts go out to those people and everything that they're experiencing. And, we're hoping for the best.
Absolutely.
Yep, for sure. All right, guys. I'm gonna hit the stop recording. You'll hear that, and then you won't disappear, so don't worry about that.
The Watershed Story. A watershed moment might be pivotal, but it might also be quiet and fleeting. It could be a monumentous occasion, a cause for celebration, an enormous triumph, or a small daily victory. A watershed moment could be a rekindling or an observation or a gathering. Any opportunity to relish with friends and family. It's whatever you choose to cheers to, who you're gathered around, and whatever's worth celebrating. We founded Watershed Distillery on the principles of community in 2010. We wanted to live in, work in, and contribute to the community in which we grew up. We aimed to create spirits and stood apart in quality and character. Along the way, we set out to form a community of our own, one that could gather together to savor, celebrate, and enjoy good spirits and company. We've grown from a tiny little still and 2 guys in jumpsuits to a dedicated team of over 40 people and 2 much larger stills. If you're ever in the area, stop by so we can introduce you to our team and pour you some of our award-winning bourbon. Creating it was our watershed moment, but we want to hear about yours.